Welcome to Next Steps, a podcast from Blackhawk Church. We believe that following Jesus is a lifelong journey, so no matter where you're at, there's always a next step to take. Each week on this podcast, we'll create space for real conversations about the questions we wrestle with, the challenges we face, and the hope we find in Jesus. Our goal isn't to have it all perfectly figured out, but to walk faithfully towards Jesus together. We're so glad you're joining us. Let's dive in.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back. And joining me today, Chris is back. Chris, you weren't able to be with us last week when we were, I think you're out sick.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
yes. We're glad that you're
back in the land of the living. So
we're
that's
good to see you. It's that time of year for sure.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Well, hey, we are jumping we're in week 2 of this semester's Next Steps podcast. A little bit of overview, I don't know, for what is coming. We're going to do something different than we did last semester. So we're just trying some things we'd love to hear, like what you enjoy, what is helpful for you, and we can do more of that. But some of the things coming up today, we're going to be talking about Lent, which is really fun. We're going to be doing some Christian calendar podcast episodes where as we're approaching different seasons, we're just going to dive into each of those, tell a little bit about them, how people practice them as a way of knowing what the global church is up to and how we might participate in that. We're going to be doing some Exodus podcast episodes. So we are coming up to a very long Exodus series.
8 weeks, right?
Yeah, 8 weeks, 10. Is it more? Is it 8?
I thought 8. I was just looking. I thought it was 8. But
okay,
regardless,
good. Well, it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have a couple of Q&As along the way. So we'll be talking about that on Sunday mornings. But even now, listening, you can be writing down questions you have throughout the Exodus series, and Charles will join us for a few of those. And then we will also be doing some behind-the-scenes episodes, which basically the idea is we're going to be interviewing different people on our staff team and volunteers who lead different parts, different ministries, and talking about what's going on, what is God up to in that particular ministry, how you can be praying for them. This is our hope. There's so many things going on in life for a church, and it's impossible to be able to communicate it all on a Sunday morning. And so this is an opportunity that you get to go behind the scenes and learn about what God's up to.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. Yeah, that'll be a fun one. And then we will end the semester by talking about some invite culture. So what does it mean that we're a church that is outward facing and wanting to reach our community? So that's a little roadmap of what we'll be doing over this semester.
Well, and since this is a place of truth and forgiveness, I was wrong. It's way longer than 8 weeks.
I was feeling a lot.
Is 8 weeks before Easter. Then we do an Easter service, and then we have 5 more weeks. So
y'all,
buckle up. 13 weeks in Exodus.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you for...
You're going to have lots of questions. Yeah, and
it'll be great.
Charles will be here to answer them, which is
exactly.
It's good. Awesome. Okay, so Chris, today we're talking about the upcoming season of Lent. So when you're listening to this, it will be starting next week, next Wednesday. For some of you, Lent is something that you're super familiar with. I think about especially people who grew up in more liturgical churches. This is something that is super common. This church calendar really it's something that the worldwide church does. And so some churches observe it more than others, and so this is our way of kind of stepping into that. Some of you have no idea what we're talking about. You're like, Lent, right. What do you mean? So whether wherever you're at, this will be a fun episode.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Chris, Lent, what is it? If you were explaining to somebody who had no idea what it was, what would you say?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, I actually didn't really grow up in a tradition that practiced this, that observed Lent or Ash Wednesday. Actually, I was having a little bit of a post-traumatic flashback as you were talking about Ash Wednesday, because my only memory of that from my childhood is that I wanted to go to a Boys to Men concert with all of my friends.
I love this so much. Can we just pause? I love that you wanted to do that. I love Boys to Men. Yep.
And I couldn't go because it was Ash Wednesday. And I was like, what in the world is Ash Wednesday? And why is it preventing me from going to a Boys to Men concert? So that was about my extent of my experience.
Very different experiences.
So, anyway, so I'm not an expert either. It's
Yeah.
not something I grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
I did not come from one of those liturgical backgrounds. And yet, yeah, it's been something that as I've learned about it over the past, I don't know, 10 or so years is something that's been meaningful to me.
Yeah.
But I just want to put out there from the beginning, it's almost more from like a kind of in ways that the evangelical church has
Yes.
adapted some of this.
Yeah.
So Lent, yeah, I can talk about it in a historical way, but also a personal way, is something that, as far as I understand, from around the second century, and then it kind of grew in years after that, is something that the early church practiced at first, like just in the few days leading up to Easter, to kind of prepare themselves for Resurrection Sunday. And then it grew and expanded. Like 40 days is a round biblical number. Jesus, 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness, and 40 days with the ark and the flood and all of that kind of stuff. And began to be something that the early church would kind of anticipate and celebrate for a while. Some of that was in preparation for like our own hearts, having that be a time of repentance and really kind of digging in with God and our relationships with Him. But then it also became tied to some church things. A lot of churches would do baptisms on Easter Sunday, and so there was education and different things that in preparation for someone's baptism, that as they observed the season of Lent, was all kind of wrapped up in this together as they would prepare for Easter Sunday to celebrate that, but also for baptism and that kind of thing. And so, I don't know, fast forward to 2026 and the ways that I've started to observe it, maybe more personally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and some of this comes, I have this author that I really love named Chuck DeGroat who writes on this. He has a Lent devotional called Falling into Goodness. And he talks about how Lent comes from like this old English word, lengthen. I don't know if I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying that correctly. There's probably a reason that we don't say it like that anymore. It's kind of confusing to pronounce, but it means springtime. And he really ties it to like, it's this season. It's not meant to be like depressing and sad and thinking about how horrible we are and that kind of thing. But I mean, as we record this, we're out of the coldest weather that we've had, but it's still like negative 10 degrees
Mm-hmm.
wind chill. And we look forward to springtime, this time of like thawing and the ground begins to soften. And so for us too, as we observe Lent, it's almost like this springtime for our hearts, where our hearts can begin to thaw, and we look forward to lengthening days and to growth and seeing goodness around us, and really just being in tune in an intentional way in this season of what it is that God's doing in our lives. Maybe there are things that we need to kind of course correct and repent from, and that kind of thing, but really an invitation into a season to kind of thaw out our lives and our hearts, and to really press into our relationship with the Lord, kind of evaluate those things and to see how He might want to take us deeper, especially as we head toward Easter and
Yeah.
Resurrection Sunday and that kind of thing. So I don't know,
I love that.
is that
Yes.
helpful?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think that I've heard, that's kind of the same idea. That's a more positive spin than I feel like I have.
Yeah.
I'm as used to, so I really love that. I think sometimes I think about it, in addition, as a way of taking time to reflect and to acknowledge, like, what are the things in my life that are standing in the way of like a full and abundant life with God.
Yeah.
Is sometimes how I think about it, because growing up, I grew up in a church that did practice it, but I didn't know the why behind it. I
Yep.
just knew I was supposed to give something up. Normally it was candy, and that's such a bummer. And then I would eat fish on Fridays. I wasn't sure why I wasn't allowed to eat meat on Fridays. Right? It was just a tradition without. I didn't know. I wasn't
Yeah.
taught
Yep.
the reasonings why, and so I think I brought that into when I became a Christ follower and brought it into the kind of Protestant church tradition. I didn't really know what I was doing. I thought I
Yeah.
was like sacrificing for God, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Like it was something I was doing for Him, and I didn't understand
Mhm.
that it was actually an opportunity um, to be able to more fully follow him.
Yeah.
And so I think that shift in my thinking around Lent has really allowed it to
Yeah.
not be so heavy, but as an opportunity and an invitation instead of this like kind of darker,
Yep.
depressing
Yeah.
6 weeks or however long it is.
Yeah.
So
That's good. I think that was kind of my first impression with it too. I became a Christ follower in college and I saw so many people around me that would observe Lent in some way from different backgrounds. And usually, maybe this was just my perception and it was actually more meaningful to them, but it meant like giving up chocolate
yeah, yeah,
or something, or it was tied to fasting of some sort. And it was like, what, why are, that's what I thought it
yeah,
was just like giving up something or
hmm
TV for a month or something like that.
yeah,
And yet it's like, well, yeah, that could be what it looks like
yeah,
on the surface, and we could say that about any of those things,
yes,
about fasting, about prayer. Like it could just look kind of rote and monotonous, and yet, like fasting is a part of Lent that, yeah, certainly has a meaningful
yeah,
place, not just to do it and to like suffer through it, but to create like space and margin for God to
yeah,
like show up and to speak into our lives. So
yeah,
whether that's fasting from food or fasting from social media to kind of like quiet the noise around us for a season and to be able to dig in and to pray more intentionally.
yeah,
Some people really focus on giving and being more generous in
yeah,
this
that's right.
season and like allowing God to do something in them through that, through simplicity and really not spending more than they need and that kind of thing. So even as I think maybe we'll talk about Ash Wednesday and that kind of thing
Yep.
a little bit, but part of Lent is like how we return to the dust, which is kind
Mhm.
of a morbid, kind of can be a
Yeah,
depressing thing. And
yeah,
yet, like you were talking about, it's like, no, let's like strip away like the pretense and the
yeah,
masks that we put on. And it's like, it's not meant to be depressing, but it's this reality check of like,
mm,
yeah, like that is our reality. And yet, like let's cut away the just junk and the excess in our lives to be able to like be reminded of who God
yeah,
has created us to be
yeah,
and this relationship that we get to have with him and some of that kind of stuff. Like get rid of the masks. We don't
yeah,
need any of that kind of
yeah.
stuff, but how do we press in with Jesus in a really authentic and
hmm
meaningful way in this season?
And I love that. And if you think about that, we come back to this every single year, that
Yeah.
it's this like yearly cycle of returning. I love that, right? It's
Yeah.
not just like a one-time thing, but it's this is a part of the rhythm of the communal life with God is kind of resetting in a way every
Yeah.
year. And so I do like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Ash Wednesday because that is the day we here at Blackhawk we don't have an Ash Wednesday service. That's not what we do. There's different churches in the area who do, and some Blackhawkers do go.
Hmm.
To those services. They can be so meaningful. This year, Ash Wednesday is February 18th, and so on that day, if you pay close attention to people at the grocery store
Yeah.
and at your workplace, you'll probably see people who have some ashes on their head. They, the church generally uses the palm leaves from the year before, from Palm Sunday, as kind of a reminder of the gospel as a part of that
Hmm.
Ash Wednesday service. They mix it with oil, and then they put it, like Chris said, from dust. What is it? From dust you have come and dust you will return, or
Yeah.
something
Yep.
like that. Just as a reminder. And so then you leave it on all day.
Hmm.
So you'll know. Yeah. So be on the lookout for that
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
next Wednesday
Yep.
is when it'll be.
Yep.
Um, and so normally it's just, yeah, like you said, an opportunity to be able to remember that God is in it. God is our creator. He's sustains us in our present and in our future. And just a good reminder that we are very human
Yeah.
and we are
Yep.
not God. We're never meant to be. Sometimes we forget that.
Yeah.
And it can be a very humbling, sober service, but
Yep.
it can be really, yeah, meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Again, not meant to be depressing, but
hmm
like it should bring about a certain sense of humility and our like true posture before God. But again, this is maybe my evangelical adaptation of this that as I've kind of dug into things around Ash Wednesday, but like also, again, an invitation to like, we don't have to pretend that we're anything we're not. There's something
I love that.
humbling that right sizes who we are. If we are dust and to dust we will return,
hmm
but also that actually invites us into rest and
Yes.
experiencing God's rest, that we don't have to try too hard
Yeah.
or be something that we're not. We can die to those like false selves and those
Mm.
things in our lives, and just get back to like the essentials and
Mm.
who we truly are and who truly God is, and all of that kind of stuff. So I think if I can put like a big umbrella
Yeah.
over everything, again, that first kind of impression of Lent and things like Ash Wednesday as like, oh, it just feels like just a cultural obligation that you do, or it feels depressing, like you just give up something and that's the extent of it. Like you're supposed to suffer through it. Like is suffering the point? And it's really not. It's this invitation to move kind of the clutter in our lives, to be sometimes humble but reminded of who we truly are, and to receive God's love and his presence and his goodness in the midst of all that. And then we get to Easter when we
Mm.
celebrate that once and for all
Yeah.
and his resurrection victory and all of those things. So
Okay.
it's a powerful lead up to
Yeah, it is.
the Super Bowl of our
Yeah,
faith
that's
and,
right.
and all of that.
That's
So
good. So, okay, so thinking about what if somebody hearing about this, they think, okay, well, I haven't observed this since I was a child or ever, or actually, I've been observing it kind of in the way that you guys were talking about, of it being more of an
yeah,
obligation or a drudgery, if you will. What are some ways that people can practice
yeah.
observe this season,
Yeah.
this year?
Yeah, maybe a couple easy ones off the top of my head. I mean, there are some great devotionals out there that if you want some kind of a wise guide to guide you through it, I think there's some good ones out there. I mentioned the one from Chuck DeGroat. Maybe we'll put some other ones in the show notes. There's a lot of great, I know on the Bible app, on YouVersion, there's some really great Lent reading plans that might even integrate little sort of short devotionals or some teaching around Lent and what it is that can be really helpful to guide us through this season. Either of those would be good
Hmm.
places to start. But then maybe around the idea of some of the fasting stuff or just making room for God.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe this is a season where, again, not out of obligation or drudgery or that kind of thing, but is there something that, like, you kind of know what it is right now? There's just something that's cluttering up your life, whether it's like you don't really like Facebook anymore, but you just find yourself constantly scrolling, or maybe it's TV or something else. Like, is there an invitation in this season as we head into Lent to just even if it's one thing, just to strip it away, set it aside, delete that Instagram app or the Facebook one or whatever it is, and just to create a little bit more space to be able to meet with God and to hear from him in this season. So I don't think
That's
you can go
good.
wrong with
Yeah,
any of
that's good.
those three things or
Yeah.
doing something like that. What would
Yeah.
you say? I know that
No, I
you
mean,
observe this
yeah,
too, and
no, that's yeah, exactly it. I know in this season, yeah, I'm because I'm looking at it a little bit differently. I think in the past it's been things like, oh, chocolate or soda because I love soda so much. And that's truly a sacrifice and I
yeah,
get angry. So it is really reveals some things about me. But I've just as we're approaching, I've been wondering, okay, for like what is something that I'm finding my comfort in?
mm,
Uh outside of God? Like what is standing in the way of the abundant life I really want,
yeah,
but it prevents me from that. And I don't even realize it. And
yep,
so that's what I've been wondering about. I think for some people it could be but it can be things like sin patterns
yeah,
or relationships that shouldn't be there that are taking up too much of your head space, or whether that's it can be 100 different kinds of
yep,
relationships. Or thinking about alcohol,
hmm,
or maybe it is some kind of comfort food or scrolling or different things like that. So I haven't quite landed for me of what that's going to be this year, but that's what I've been praying about, of
yeah,
like what is standing in the way, not as a way of, oh, I'm going to suffer, quote unquote, but I'm just going to remove something that prevents me from going to God first.
yeah,
And so I'm looking forward to that. I do. My kids often, it's like families can do this if they want, depending on how old your kids are and
mm,
what kind of their spiritual maturity is. I think there's a hesitation for me to do this with if kids aren't Christ followers. To me, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's up to,
right,
obviously families, what they want to do. But I know for a couple of my kids, it's a meaningful kind of a meaningful thing that they, do. And so we just tell each other what we're going to give up and spend time to replace that with something that maybe we otherwise wouldn't do. So reading the Bible, or I know Lectio 365 is also, they often do a Lent
It's a good one.
prayer series in that. And so I really enjoy that because you don't have to think. You just turn it on, in the morning and evening. And kids, teenagers, that's totally appropriate for teenagers as well. So I think that's
great. So you got some good ideas, some
Yeah.
places that that you could start. And you were saying this earlier, but maybe someone's listening to this that it was kind of just a more of a cultural thing, or you never really fully understood the why or the meaning behind it. And I could see that happening even if you grew up with this, but never really like got brought into like some of what we've been talking about of like why we would do this as a means to try to really be intentional with God. You might have a really kind of negative reaction to some of this. And so, to the best that you can, trying to open yourself up to like, what if this could be different? Like giving it another shot and being open to how God might use it could take some courage and trying to separate from some of those past things, but could be really beautiful too.
Yeah, that's so good. That's good. Maybe one thing that comes up that I thought maybe I'll just touch on it real fast is around the culture of fasting around food in particular. And so this, obviously that was kind of the most obvious way that early Christ followers would observe this. But in our day and age, it's there are some like tricky things about it for some people. And so I think just like being mindful of why you want to, why you'd be doing certain things. I know, like for me, I as a teenager, I had an eating disorder. And so that is, even though I feel like that is not struggling with that at all, 4 years. But it's still that hunger can trigger this kind of hunger can trigger something in me. And I know for other people that can be the same too. So I think just being really wise and maybe making sure people kind of in your life understand. But if you do have, especially as like teenage boys and girls, this can trigger something, or, I want to go on a diet and I'm just going to use this as an excuse.
Right.
And so just being really honest with yourself around this, I think is just a really important, especially in our day and age, around on food and what that can mean and stuff.
Yeah.
So
that's good. Thanks for sharing that. That's a good reality check.
Yeah.
As with any spiritual practice, the goal isn't to like observe the thing to a T, but is to make it work for you so that you can experience God. That's the goal, is to experience Him, to put ourselves in a position to be able to meet with Him. And as we talk about often, then He does the heavy lifting of changing and transforming us, and He'll be faithful to show up.
So much freedom.
But do it in a way that works for you.
Yeah,
So.
it leads to abundant life. So. All right. Well, I think that's all that we have for you today. Next week, we'll be kicking off our behind the scenes series. And so we'll be having Ben Knox and Micah Howard both join us for that. So that'll be fun to be able to connect with what God is doing in student ministries.
Awesome. Well, have a great week, you guys.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Next Steps. Don't forget to check out the show notes for a list of resources if you'd like to keep the conversation going. If you want to learn more about how to get connected at Blackhawk or simply find tools to help you grow, check out blackhawk.church/hub. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. Until next time, let's keep following Jesus together.